No, this isn't the swing you might think I would be in. This is just a swing. But what's interesting is, what if I did want a little swing and my partner didn't? Is it time to end the relationship?
Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. This is a way of life that emphasizes positive sexuality, self-love, and confidence. On this journey, red is now your new color. Be courageous. Be passionate. Be sexy. And never stop living your best red life. So now I have one question for you. Are you ready to live your life in red? To join us on this journey, like and subscribe below. Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. I'm Brittany, your host, and today we are joined with Kyla Black. Welcome, Kyla. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I want to introduce her first, so you know who's all in the bedroom here. Today, we have Kyla Black. She's a clinical sex therapist, a licensed social worker who deals with sex therapy, psychotherapy. I'm reading off, there's like a list this long. Can y'all see this long? Relationship therapy. She does workshops. We're dealing with sex here, but a huge spectrum of it. Another expert in our chair to talk to. And I'm so excited to have you here. And today, everybody, we're going to go over the taboo topic that is hot on the press. We're going to talk about open relationships, poly, swingers, all the things, the non-monogamy, the unconventional. We're going to dive into it today. And this used to be Christian Girls, a little nervous. Thank you, Kyla Black. I'm so glad you're here to help us out with this, to get some information.
My pleasure. And as a secular Jewish person, I can't relate at all to your Christian background. Except that I grew up around lots of Christians, so I hear you. And we all share the guilt background to some degree, so.
Right. Well,
I agree with it.
That's where we parallel. So what got you into this line of work? It's always fascinating to me. Everyone's stories are different. What got you into sex therapy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, it started, I would say I informally started being my friend's sex therapist probably in high school, except I didn't know that being a sex therapist was a thing. I had only heard about therapists, but I'd started my career early, I would say, in advising and asking questions and listening and giving guidance and whatnot. And then in college, I was a peer sex health educator on campus and started doing sex ed workshops and really enjoyed that and came to learn probably my junior year of high school that there was a career called sex therapist. And I said, yeah, that totally matches the combination of my interests, mind, body, psychology, sexuality, reproductive health, advocacy, education, all sorts of things. Pretty much, I think I shared this with you earlier, right? Probably my senior year of college, I decided I should probably start dating women so that I could one day be a sex therapist and have a little more information and understanding and experience of more people. And so that worked out in the end. And I went to social work school and became a licensed clinical social worker and did more family work, child welfare work for probably close to a decade, and then transitioned into a sex therapy program and pursued sex therapy. And so I've been in private practice now as a certified sex therapist for over 10 years.
Wow. I mean, your story is pretty incredible because I've always felt like the idea of purpose, it's something that we're passionate about. That we would do for free. It's the thing we would get paid to do for free. And mine was podcasting, talking about relationship sex. And to hear that you have a similar story. And what I found fascinating, I have to just mention this, is that I remember us talking about this now, where you mentioned in our conversation, you decided like, I'm in this program, I'm going to go try out dating women. And that's like, I love that. It's so Carrie Sex in the City. Like, how is this? Let's go try. And then it was like, well, all is well. All is well.
Like, oh, I like this. This makes a lot of sense for me in ways that I never thought of, and carried on in that direction ever since.
Well, that's great. When you opened to that door, I guess we have different backgrounds, because I've thought of that. I was like, how would I be? We opened the first door. It's monogamy, but outside of heterosexual, I'm like, okay, try same sex. With your background and your upbringing, did you feel going into the plane of same sex? Did you have any religious, veil like haunting you a little bit, or did you feel guilt-free? Like, this is good.
I came from a Reformed Jewish family and culture. And so there wasn't a lot of, I guess, rhetoric or values imposed on me around gender or sex of the person I'm with. However, it was assumed hetero. And, I got more messaging in my family around race and ethnicity. That was okay or not okay, more from a grandparent down level, more so, I was never thought that I would date anyone other than males. And so that wasn't even part of a conversation. And so it really wasn't until I was out of my home and during college that I, was able to, recognize that I had this curiosity all along and didn't really know what it meant and thought it was just, oh, I like sex. And so it makes sense that I'd want to have sex with everybody or, explore what my sexuality is like. And so there certainly wasn't any guilt about it. There was more, I don't know how my mom's going to feel when I finally tell her, more than that. But I would say I was, I think I might have handled it a little more sensitively now toward my mom, but I think back then it was a little bit more, I was happy to kind of just be like, this is what's happening. And have it in her purview.
Well, I mean, if it were me, with my mom, I'd be like, because she's still in where she's at, be like, get back. The younger Brittany was a bit rebellious. I'd be like, guess what, Mom?
Yes.
Guess what? No. So good for you. Good for you. Well, we'll segue into our topic of the day. We're talking about open relationships or unconventional relationships. I'm sure. So you've helped a lot of people. What do you do with them that are coming to you in your practice, dealing with poly or I don't know if you deal with the swinging lifestyle couples or, you're dealing with ethical non-monogamy, poly, and all that. What do they come to you for?
Mm-hmm. So I would say I have a range of folks who sometimes come as couples, where more often than not, they show up in therapy because one person in the relationship is interested in opening up their relationship. A monogamous couple coming to consider opening up. And in my experience, again, and this is more anecdotally, those who are showing up in therapy, one person's interested and one person is either not interested or would be happy not to ever have to explore this, but their partner wants to. So there's saying, okay, I'll engage in a conversation about it. Sometimes both people are interested and want to navigate it as well as they can, and kind of do their research and get the lay of the land, so to speak. And others are coming to therapy because they've tried it and now their relationship is experiencing more conflict and difficulty. And some of that is because of just what their relationship was. Some of it is perhaps the way that they engaged in opening up their relationship. And so there's a range. I don't work with too many couples who identify as being part of the swinger community. I have a very small percentage of swinger identifying folks. I'd say more so amongst both hetero and gender fluid and queer couples. There's more open relationships. Right. And there is also more, and again, this is just looking at my kind of community of folks that I've worked with. There are more folks who are exploring or engaging in ethical non-monogamy in some formats, lots of branches, although they don't necessarily identify what they're experiencing as polyamory. And so there are some distinctions around, there's a lot of jargon and words keep getting expanded. And I won't even, say that I know what they all are because they keep getting expanded as people learn more and talk about it more.
Well, that's what's interesting. I was watching, I like trash TV, reality TV shows, and there was one on Throuples, which I found quite interesting. And they were defining it as poly. And that was new for me because my understanding of poly from where I was and my understanding was it was just pure open, no titles. Like I just didn't have a good understanding. And now I'm seeing it's this ecosystem of these little nerves of whatever you want it to be. It fits under this umbrella. Mm-hmm. And I think like when I think about that, I wonder if you're like the personality type, or would you say it's an individual? I've heard I've heard someone challenge this and said attachment style wise, here we go. Here it is. Attachment style wise, the avoidant attachments, who are scared to connect emotionally tend to lean towards, poly. This is one of the rebuttals to this group. Mm-hmm. And that they're scared to really attach deeply, so they keep it open to go. This is kind of probably will be considered an old school thing, but I've heard this recently, and it's not personally me, but I wanted to address what you think about that.
I love that question.
Okay, good.
No, I'm half chuckling because I think that I think about myself and my own attachment spectrum. And at times in relationship when I've experienced myself as what I would have labeled myself as avoidant attachment. And I found that in that time of relationship, I was very interested in non-monogamy. And I don't know if it was couldn't or afraid to connect with my primary partner, but I knew that the idea of one person felt trapping and suffocating somehow. Like the forever thing, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then now as I'm in a different relationship and I actually find myself to experience much more anxious attachment and not at all avoidant attachment. And we have a somewhat open style, although she's more open than I am. I find that I don't know that this is a lifestyle that I want to actually engage in, and there's more insecurity in a different way. So I think I just share that to say that there's a fluidity, right? And people are drawn to, I'm going to say a lifestyle, but even that, I'm not sure I'm committed to naming it as such. Not to say that it's wrong. I think that there are different ways that people can experience relationships. And like you said earlier, we've really all been socialized to be monogamous, to think monogamously, to want monogamy, to think there's something wrong with us if we struggle with monogamy, to think we have commitment issues, to think all sorts of things. We have attachment issues if we can't fit into monogamy or do monogamy well. And I think that has harmed everyone, because we think there's only one way to be in relationship. And obviously that has expanded over decades and whatnot. But I think that even for those who are now, there's so much more out there, obviously, around open relationships and non-monogamy and poly, even though it's always existed in some form in society. But that some of the challenges people have now is coming into a non-monogamy desire or exploration with the monogamy-centric way of existing, right?
Yeah.
And so I realize that's not literally answering your question, but I do think attachment is definitely connected to who may do well or better in a non-monogamy relationship structure versus others. I also think some people are wired. Some people experience it as an orientation similar to just who they're attracted to, what kind of sex they're attracted to. Even, for folks who are kinky, there's like an orientation, like just a wiring of this is how I'm wired. I'm designed this way, right? And then for others, it's I'm not at all designed this way, but this seems interesting, and hey, expansion, great.
Right. Well, I love that, because the answer to me is like, when I'm mentioning attachment style, it's yes and.
Right.
It's like let's not keep it black and white here. There is a gray area, and yes, attachment styles are present. There, to me, needs to be a lot more acceptance of self, of where you're at. And so if I accept, okay, in this relationship, I'm an avoidant. I am, for whatever reason, in this place in my life, I've been hurt very badly. I have trust issues in general. I'm with this person who I like a lot. I'm a highly sexual individual. I'm, for some reason, for whatever reason, feeling I want to be open. And, but there are people, I've seen people in the spiritual community who take it to the woo level of the poly world. And it's like there is so much shame around feeling sexual attraction. It's like we think, oh, I'm in a monogamous relationship. I'm not going to feel sexual attraction for anyone, ever. I'm not supposed to. So there's like this shame. And I've realized I had that in relationships. There's some I wanted to be open. A lot of times it was because I was bored. I'm not going to lie. And we had kids. So I felt like, well, I'm doing the right thing. We're staying together. We're best friends. But I want something kind of spicy over here. It's wanting that variety. But I judged myself and put so much pressure on, I need to make a decision to cut this guy off, instead of giving him the option, like, okay, I need more spice in the relationship. We're kind of friend zoned. I'm wanting something passionate. How do you feel about that? If you want that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I relate to you about the anxious attachment. My last relationship, I went from being probably more avoidant in most relationships. Then this last one kicked my ass. I became an anxious attachment. I was like, oh my God.
Welcome.
Oh man. I was jealous. I was like, what is this feeling? And then we did some fantasy play in the bedroom one day, and he mentioned a girl. And for me on my own, my relationship with fantasy, I go there all the time. I prefer women in fantasy. But for him to mention it, my anxious attachment was like, is there something wrong with me? Why not me? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's one of the probably most common challenges that people experience when they're thinking about opening up their monogamous relationship. And some of the most common worries that arise are around, what is that? If you're going to date other people or be sexual with other people or have feelings for other people, what does that mean about me? What does that mean about us?
Yeah.
How does that threaten our connection? Or, right? I mean, and the person who wants it often feels, well, I think it will strengthen our connection. I think
I hear that.
Get closer. And the truth is, people really can't and don't know until you do it. You don't know what it's like to swim until you get in the swimming pool. And you can read everything about it, which I think is a really smart idea, frankly. I mean, I think for those who are seeking like an ethically non-monogamous situation, reading books, articles, blogs, whatever people are reading these days, but reputable sources around best practices and ethical and consensual practices and communication and all the things that are sort of the optimal pot of ingredients that every couple needs a slightly different combination of to
feel safe.
To feel safe, right? Because at the end of the day, and that's where the attachment piece comes in, is this going to disrupt my sense of safety? Or is this going to, will it not affect it, right? Just keep the safety as it is, or is it going to threaten it? And now what?
Yeah. Well, and let me ask you this, like someone with the perspective, I understand the perspective of the fear-based side of it, where it's like, oh no, what's wrong with me? Why am I not enough? Are they bored with me? Why do they want someone else? I think that we probably have a lot of viewers, if they're on the others, they're getting invited with this scenario. That could be a lot of the fears going on. That's what I had personally. Then there's the other side. This could bring us closer together. That perspective. So when you hear that, are you saying that it's a potential that this person's not bored with their partner? There's nothing wrong with their partner. They are in love with them. It's a healthy relationship. They're getting their needs met with each other in a healthy way. But how would it bring them closer together?
Yeah, I love that. Yes. So everything you just said, right? So let's say in a scenario where the person interested in exploring with others feels this way toward their partner. I love you. I feel like my needs are being met. We're connected. I love our life together. All of these things. I'm not bored. We're not lacking passion, right? And so typically, right, the other person's like, well, then why do you need anyone else?
Right.
And I think for the person, again, and this is a generalization. But for the person who feels maybe there can be more closeness in this, I'll just call it the primary relationship for the moment, right? The original relationship.
The OG.
The OG.
Sorry.
No, it's necessary. That often it's through interacting with other people that the interested person will then, like, there's something I want to learn about myself that maybe I'm not able to learn in this relationship for whatever reason. And maybe it's nothing to do with my partner. It could be our dynamics. It just could be what we both bring to the table. There could be specific things I want to be learning about myself, or something I don't even know that I want to learn, but I sense is going to be accessible and learnable in a new interaction. And that might be even conversationally with someone else. It might be flirting. It might be literally sexual. It's not always sexual for people. It often is, but it often isn't. Sometimes it's, I want to go on dates. I want someone to take me on a date. I want to be treated a certain way. I want to experience myself in a particular way. And so often it still comes back to, well, it's all over. For some, there's something I want to learn about myself. There's something I want to experience for myself that I would like to experience through the venue of other people. And for some, I want to experience other people. Specifically, it's about other partners, newness, novelty. For some people who, let's say are interested in kink, and with their primary relationship, kink is not available. Right. And so they may be seeking to experience that part of their sexuality in a venue that offers that.
Right.
Right. And so I think sometimes it is about all my needs are met here and I'm still curious, because that's the thing too. I mean, we say all my needs are met, like no one's having all of their needs met in a relationship.
I'm glad you said that.
With one person. I think that we all have our own set of prioritized needs and our top 5 or top 10 that are, these are the kinds of needs I need to have met in this relationship. Otherwise I can't be in this relationship. And the other person brings theirs. And if we can meet each other, amazing. Are you going to meet every single need of mine? No, that's not possible. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure where in history, Esther Perel is a beautiful historian when she outlines and talks about how marriage has evolved and whatnot. And I don't remember where in the timeline this shifted exactly, right? But it's somewhere along the way, it went from, there were people you married for logistics and property, and then you had your lovers for romance and the good sex. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, everything became mushed into one, right? And so now my person that I'm going to marry is going to be my best friend, my lover, my financial partner, my house planner, my co-parent, my activity partner, my emotional partner, my, everything wrapped into one. And that sets up a pretty high challenge for anyone to.
No wonder we lose our autonomy. I mean, because we're trying to run this rat race of keeping up with expectations to stay together, because we have the same goal, me and said person. We don't want to lose each other. We want to we've invested all this time. We love each other. But I think you made a great point is going, hey, this person cannot meet all my needs, period. They can fit into this category where, let's say I want a wife or I want a husband. They have these special things that I would want to experience with a wife or husband. Mm-hmm. But they're a workaholic. They like to work all the time. Their sex drive's not as high as mine because he's a lot older than me and I'm hitting 36 and I'm horny. So I don't want to lose him. I love him. I'm still attracted to him, but I need to get my needs met. And so that's just an example of okay, honey, I know maybe your testosterone's low and I'm kind of into kink and I want to explore it. And he's like, no. Okay, well, this is where we would negotiate with someone like possibly you, Kyla. Mm-hmm. Where can we negotiate so we can be individuals in this? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the situation is hard because I've heard stories of where there was a lack of sexual alignment with a couple. Mm-hmm. And one person wanted more than the other, but they wanted monogamy. They didn't want someone else. Mm-hmm. And the other person was like, okay, let's open the relationship. I'm not going to say this person's name. I'm just giving you the scenario. Okay, we'll open the relationship because sex isn't a big deal to me. So go ahead. You can sleep with other people. So then the childhood wounding's like, what? You would just let me go. But the other person who wasn't as sexual was like, but I'm going to as well. And then, so the woman was very upset because she's like, how can you, if you don't have the energy to do it with me, how can you go out and do it with all these other people? Mm-hmm. It was so this is where we see relationships fall apart because, when you're not aligned sexually.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, there's definitely a lot to learn and normalize around relationships that choose not to be monogamous.
Right.
And just get to include them in the spectrum of what's available for people in relationships, and even teach early on that there's different ways to be in relationship, and that, at the risk of, I recognize that really doesn't sit well with a lot of places and cultures, and certainly religion, whatnot. And I'm not even saying that I'm promoting one over another, but more that there is more than one option, and that people still may gravitate toward monogamy because, again, especially for folks who want to have kids and they feel more stable or secure in however many parent household, right? And at the same time, I think that if it was understood, I actually think this is just my personal belief, but I think that if people felt like they knew, here's the menu of options and this is what I'm choosing, it's a more empowered choice versus I have to, it's the only option. There's something wrong with me if it's hard for me, but I have no choice.
Thanks for joining the Life in Red today, where we embrace passion, confidence, and positive sexuality. Keep painting your journey in bold red strokes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us so that you never miss out on living your best red life. Ready for more? Stay passionate, stay red. See you next episode.